Okay, welcome back everybody for my first posted video in a while of an internet chess game. This time I am doing a correspondence game, the second one I have posting. I think this is my 10th game altogether, so a little bit of a milestone. This one I was playing on Red Hot Pawn. I've since played a whole bunch of games. I've played over 20 games, and I've been fortunate to have a pretty good record so far. If you ever go to Red Hot Pawn, you can look me up over there. I'm SH76. And this game was a game I played a couple months ago or so, ended a couple of months ago. I thought it was a pretty good game. My opponent probably made one very bad mistake, but other than that, I thought it was a product of a pretty good attack, and let's see what happens over here. I was playing the white pieces this time. I started off with e4, which I generally do. My opponent played e5, the double king pawn opening. I played knight f3, that's my general opening. My opponent decided to go with Petrov's defense, knight f6. I am not that comfortable playing an aggressive attack against the Petrov defense, such as, knight takes e5 or something like that. So I just played it relatively conservatively with knight c3. He plays knight c6, and we have the four knights game. Of course, you could transpose into that if he had played the standard knight f6 before. But this, again, I think a pretty not really an aggressive opening from either side over here. Just a pretty safe opening. So I played d4. I want to try to expand in the center, try to bust open the center a little bit. I'm more comfortable with open games. Normally, when my opponent plays knight f6, I like to play the Italian, knight c6. I like to play the Italian game with bishop to c4. But over here, since I didn't really see that as being a good option with both knights out, he played. Just played d4. He plays e takes d4, knight takes d4. Then he plays bishop b4, trying to pin my knight. You can see I've got, obviously more space in the center, but he has a very uncomfortable pin on my knight. So I alleviate that pin I don't alleviate the pin right away, but I played knight takes c6. Of course, the reason why I do that is because I cannot alleviate the pin by putting my bishop on d2 as long as this knight is sitting here, because then the knight hangs. The knight over here was only being protected by my queen, so if I block that by putting the bishop over here, I can't do anything with it. So I'm happy to take the knight, because then at least I double his pawns. Again, the center closes up a little bit, but at least I, have a slight advantage over there in that respect. Bishop takes, with b takes c6. Of course, if he would have played d takes c6, I would have traded the queens off, and then he wouldn't have been able to castle. Again, that would have been a very slight advantage, but still, you play for any advantage you can. Okay, so then I played bishop to d3, protecting the e pawn. If really it does two things. Number one, it frees up the kingside castle and in allowing me to alleviate the pawn on the pin on this knight. And and of course it protects this pawn, because this pawn was not protected at all prior, because with the bishop over here, he just takes it, and he just takes this pawn, and I can't retake, obviously, because this knight is pinned against my king. So I play bishop takes d3, bishop d3. Now, obviously, he could have given me a very awkward pawn structure with bishop takes c3 over here, and I'd have to take back with the b pawn, and I'd have all these pawn islands, and that might have been certainly a disadvantage for me. But on the other hand, I do like to try to get the two bishops, especially in the early part of the game, and with him also having a set of doubled pawns, even though his really isn't really a pawn island over here, and mine would be a little bit more awkward. But between the fact that he has doubled pawns and that I would have the two bishops, I think I certainly would have compensation for the fact that that I would have the two isolated c pawns. So I wasn't too worried about that either. He plays d6 again to free up this bishop to allow it access. He could have played it up to d5, but he played it to d6 instead. I played bishop d2. I want to get rid of the possibility of doubling up my c pawns. Again, before I really didn't have much of a choice. I was willing to let it happen, but now that I have a free move, I try to avoid allowing him to double up my pawns. So now he castles. I castle. He brings his bishop to g4. Now here I started to get, I started to get a little nervous over here. I saw that the fact that obviously he's threatening my queen over here. And if I move my bishop back over here, then this pawn can hang if he takes, if I play bishop to e2, and then he takes, I take, and he takes, then he wins a pawn. But I did that anyway. I played bishop e2 anyway, because I figured if he does if he does take, then I have two pieces focusing on this bishop, and I can take this bishop. So even if, eventually I think we'd trade off the minor pieces, but this pawn I don't think would be in too much jeopardy, because he would have to worry about this minor piece being threatened over here. Again, there are some variations that you could play out if you like, but again, I thought at this point in the game, as I was thinking about it, I was thinking that at best I had an even position. I thought I'd kind of messed up the opening a little bit at some point, but in any case, I certainly didn't think I was much worse than even. So he plays bishop takes e2. Kind of gets me out of the woods a little bit. By trading off the bishop, obviously I play queen takes e2. Now, things have pretty much stabilized. If you look at the position at this point, he's got the doubled c-pawns, obviously. He cannot double my c-pawns because it's being defended by this knight. This pawn is double protected by my queen and my knight. It's threatened once. He can always move the rook over to threaten it again. I can move the rook over to defend it again. He can attack it again. I can defend it again. But the position is kind of stabilized. We're looking at, kind of a semi-open game over here with some chances, certainly, each king a little bit exposed over here, but the kind of game that I enjoy playing, that I'm comfortable with. Okay, so now he plays h6. I guess he doesn't want to allow me to establish a pin on his knight with my dark squared bishop. Certainly a prophylactic move, maybe a move where he really couldn't think of anything better, so he figured he might as well make sure my bishop doesn't come over here to g5. So I played queen f3. Again, I'm planning to try to expand on the king side, get a little bit of an attack going. This bishop isn't really in a very good defensive position for him. His light square bishop obviously isn't on the board, so I figured if I can get my queen over, maybe to g3, I can threaten bishop takes take h6. One thing about h6, playing h6 or h3, and I've seen this over and over again, it helps in that it covers up this square, obviously. It covers up g5, or for white it covers up g4, and not allowing bishops or knights to get there, but it does establish a little bit of a weakness in that a dark squared bishop coming across can take this piece. If the queen is on this file, obviously this piece can't take back at all. In other cases, the bishop can sacrifice itself for this pawn. There are many times where I've done that. I've been in a game where it made sense to take this pawn with the bishop and to sacrifice it in order to blow open the kingside pawn structure. So he plays rook e8. Trying, again, doubling up on this pawn. Notice that this pawn is now indirectly threatened, because even though right now it's attacked twice and defended twice, if he trades off the bishop for the knight, he plays bishop takes e3, bishop takes e3, and then knight or rook takes e4, and I'm down a pawn all of a sudden. So it is indirectly threatened, but I figured I would let him take that pawn, or I'm sorry, actually, no, I did defend it. I defended then in rook e1 to defend that pawn. Then he plays a5, maybe looking to expand a little bit on the queen side, maybe looking to push this pawn and then get this rook down to the fifth rank. Sometimes it's interesting. I've seen some games where in this kind of a game where the rook all the way on this side of the board doesn't really have anything to do, sometimes coming down to the fourth rank, in this case would be the fifth rank, but black's fourth rank, or for white, to the fourth rank, sometimes can be very powerful. It can shoot all the way across to join in a kingside attack. It can control that fifth rank, which can be a very good outpost for some pieces. Maybe that's what he was thinking. Either way, I figured there's no reason to abandon my plan to attack on the king side. So first, I kick the bishop with a3. I don't want to move everything. I want to be able to have freedom of movement across. Obviously, right now this knight is pinned, because if I move the knight wherever it is, this bishop is going to hang. This bishop is not being defended at all. So I kick the bishop to c5. I kick the bishop to c5. He doesn't really have any other place to put it. And then I played queen g3. Obviously, my immediate threat is bishop take h6, threatening checkmate, and not allowing, and of course not allowing him to take back by putting the queen on the same file as his king. So he then plays knight h5. Obviously, knight h5 threatens the queen, and it protects this piece over here. Not that it's threatened immediately, but it does make me move my queen. I played queen g4, threatening the knight, kicking the knight, so the knight just pops back, pops